I played 3 missions from Battlefield 6's campaign, and it seems like EA is pushing blockbuster set pieces to their very limits. I have 3 key takeaways, and they are: 1. The fundamentals of what make Battlefield are on display a lot. We're talking about large-scale warfare, we're talking about a high level of destruction, and we're talking about a lot of freedom. On top of that, the game is always throwing new gameplay opportunities at you, so you're never bored for even a minute. And then finally, it feels a little more like a Call of Duty campaign than you might be expecting. So I played through 3 missions. They're called Operation Gladius, No Sleep, and Operation Ember Strike. And the basic setup for this is very, very familiar. NATO is falling apart. A bunch of members have exited it. And now there's a private military company called Pax Armata, which is funded by a coalition, including some ex-NATO members. As part of that, they have a base in Gibraltar, which the US and its allies are preparing to peacefully give over to Pax Armata so they can take on their security duties. And as it's about to happen, Pax Armata decides it's gonna launch a strike against its allies and betray everyone. From there, all hell breaks loose, and you play as a crew called Dagger 1-3, various members, and it's your job to stop the world from being consumed by this all-encompassing war. So each of the 3 missions I felt was a pretty good showcase of what makes Battlefield Battlefield. The first one, Operation Gladius, was good to show you how overwhelming a Battlefield game can be, and that's for me what makes it distinct from a bunch of other first-person shooter games. What makes it overwhelming is the amount of things happening on screen and how the sound design is making sure that you always feel like you're being pressured. The mission begins with a Normandy Beach style landing, which is typical for these kind of games, and almost immediately it's overwhelming. You don't know where to look, what you should be shooting out, everyone is screaming, and before you know it, you feel really, really, really pressured. But you have your own teammates shouting at you, telling you what to do. And very quickly you realize, oh, I've got RPGs coming towards me. I need to use my long range rifle to take those out and protect the tank. From there, you're kind of protecting this tank and walking it through a town. At the same time, what makes it really, really interesting is there's way more verticality than you would expect. I know that's kind of weird to say about a Battlefield game, but it felt like it was more encouraging this because I spent a lot of time looking at roofs and clearing windows. And that kind of sense of being overwhelmed was always present. It never felt like I had a moment to breathe. But it also meant that I got a really good showcase of how much depth there is to the combat. I was pushing, I was flanking, I was getting high up on top of rooftops and then using that position to kind of pin down enemies as I ordered my squad to move in for the kills. And it was very, very engaging. It was very, very satisfying to move around and also kind of push through the cacophony of sounds and explosions to reach my goal point. What I really liked about it is it didn't feel like the action was waiting for me to trigger it, as it can do in a lot of first-person shooters, especially Call of Duty and some Battlefields. It felt like everything was just happening and I felt like a small part of it to trying to make my way through. So that kind of like not being the focal point of the action was really, really exciting. The second mission I played was called No Sleep, and it takes the action to New York City, Brooklyn specifically. And there, what I think the game showed off best was the close quarters destruction. Obviously, in the mission before, there was a lot of stuff blowing up, buildings were being, crumpled and glass was shattering. But what I enjoyed about No Sleep was because we were clearing a lot of very, very tight apartments and corridors, it meant that you could use the destructibility of the environments to your advantage and, for example, shoot through some walls and chip away at the plaster and create new sightlines for yourself. You could use the kind of destruction to create new pathways for yourself. And again, do that thing where it's like, I know my enemy is here, but they're not expecting me to push through this way. And if I shoot a hole through there, or I chuck a grenade over there, or I, flash a room, I can quickly go around. So it kind of has that like close quarters Spec Ops style feel to it, which I thought was a nice change from the previous mission because it meant that I got to swap to close range weapons like shotguns, which if you played any Battlefield game, you know how much these guns pack a punch. And in this game especially, the sound design and the sense of feedback you get from hitting an enemy with a shotgun or a rifle or a grenade is very, very thrilling.
Reloading!
That mission takes you from inside apartments to underground into like the subway network, and I won't talk about in details what the set piece is, but let's just say you're very quickly in a vehicle and you're chasing down a train, and by the time you're done, you are in an iconic landmark that has been wrecked to hell, and you are forcing your way through this train and you're trying to get to a safe point and also rendezvous with teammates, and it is again very, very overwhelming, but on a very large scale way that still doesn't sacrifice the intimacy of the kind of stealthy Spec Ops style engagements. The final mission I played was called Operation Ember Strike, and it takes place in Tajikistan. And this is perhaps the most open of all the areas that I played in, certainly more than the Gibraltar one, because that felt like it was open, but it was pushing you along certain action points and funneling you into where it wanted you to go generally. Tajikistan felt a lot more open. The setup was very, very basic, and it did that classic open world first person shooter mission style thing where it's like, hey, here are 3 encampments. We need to take out this, this, and this at each of the encampments. Also, each of these encampments is surrounded by enemies that have like RPGs, there's vehicles moving around, there's different choke points, and the game kind of tells you, hey, if you want to have an easier time, you might want to clear some of the surrounding enemies and some of the equipment they have, destroy that before you make a run at the main objective in each of these camps. And from there, it becomes a very almost Battlefield multiplayer-like experience where you have various tools at your disposal, like a drone, for example. The drone's got a very short range, but your character, your specialist who uses drones and is more sniper focused and is like recon focused, can use those drones to kind of target small areas and clear them of enemies. But what you want to do is also use your vehicles to kind of maneuver around and try and create these small pockets of firefights that you can slowly chip away at the greater hold the enemy presence has on a certain objective area. And that I thought was really, really exciting for people who love the idea of approaching the combat in how they see most fit. I really enjoyed the sniper approach, but you can just as easily switch to an assault rifle, a silenced rifle, and maybe like if you can find one and go in and get amongst them and kill everyone, or you could just run in guns blazing, don't worry about thinning out the crowd and just create the biggest firefight that you can. But that is all to say there is a lot of gameplay opportunities in each of the 3 missions. But what I said at the beginning was every single one of them fed into leaning into heavily what makes Battlefield Battlefield and what differentiates it from the likes of Call of Duty or any other first-person shooter. And that is the scale of it and the kind of how overwhelming it is. Large-scale warfare is the hallmark of Battlefield. And it's been up and down in the various single-player campaigns Battlefield has had previously. And this one, I was very, very, very engaged with what I was playing. And I'm not traditionally someone who has really super enjoyed the Battlefield campaigns, but for sure, I'm definitely going to be playing this one when it comes out to see how well it holds up to what I played today.